Hi, this is Greg Suddy on Soccer. I am here with Andrea Precurato. I hope I got that right.
Yes.
She is the captain of the Youngstown Nighthawks in MASLW. Good. I'm glad I got that right, Andrea. Welcome so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I haven't really talked with anybody directly involved with the MASLW, and it's really exciting to have you on board.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've watched some of the interviews, so it's really cool to talk to you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to do a quick spot of sponsorship here real quick, and then we'll get started. Study on Soccer is sponsored by Auden Technologies. Auden Technologies takes care of everything from security cameras to alarm systems, all the way to servers and networks. They operate primarily out of the Midwest and the Northeast. So we want to thank you very much for Auden Technologies for sponsoring Study on Soccer for this season. Thank you very much, Auden Technologies. So Andrea, let's get started in where it all gets started. Let's talk about your growing up as a kid. Let's hit where you went to school, maybe some of the people you played with as a kid or clubs that you played on. Mention also how you fell in love with the game of soccer. One of the things that I always like to ask people, athletes in America, there are choices. As an athlete in the United States, you have choices. What sport you're going to play, and most play a lot of sports as kids, and then sort of funnel into what they fall in love with. How did you fall in love with soccer, and where did it all get started, Andrea?
All right, so I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. I think growing up, we had a lot more of a soccer community growing up. It's kind of dissipated a little bit, and now it's kind of full swing getting back into it. A lot of people are starting, some kids academies, things like that in the area. But I started, like you said, a lot of people play multiple sports. So I played soccer, I played basketball, I pole vaulted for a little bit.
Really?
And I got to a point where there was a lot going on. I had been asked to play on a couple travel teams and whatnot, so that was taking up a lot more of my time. And actually, I remember like giving up basketball and telling my family like, "Hey, I think I'm just going to focus on soccer." Like I played up to my freshman year of basketball, and my family was like, "I think you're better at basketball than you are soccer." And I'm like, "I don't care. I like soccer." So that's what I did. And it was kind of a shot in the dark. Sometimes I wasn't always the best player. I didn't develop into the sport as quickly as some of my friends did, I would say. But one of my attributes was I was always a good leader. So, I ended up being captain of my high school. I went to Austintown Fitch, and if you're from this area, that's one of the bigger schools. We're pretty competitive. Um, but so I was captain there, and all of the girls that played around me were definitely better players than me, and I was the only one that ended up going and playing in college, actually. So
Really?
that was pretty neat. Yeah. So I went to just a small D3 school in West Virginia. But I thrived there. Another fun story was I played on the field here and there, but I was primarily a goalkeeper, got recruited as a goalkeeper. And then my coach was like, I messed up. I recruited a lot of goalkeepers, and you're the most athletic one, so you're gonna play the field. And I was like, no.
Interesting.
I was like, this is ruined. Like I can't do this. And I ended up starting and playing center back from my freshman year of college all the way through.
Very
So
cool. So
I
I
just
was just
love
going to say,
soccer. I don't know.
so you're a keeper that had some, as a keeper, did you already have some foot skills that was being noticed?
I did a little bit. Like I was definitely a goalie that you would feel confident passing the ball back to me, and I'd at least be able to distribute it. But as far as like skills, taking people on, stuff like that, that was never my forte. It honestly isn't now. I'm a very simple player. I'm like, if I see that you're open, I'm going to pass you the ball.
Nice.
So
Nice. So what college did you go to? Where did you play?
I played for a very small. It's called Bethany College in Bethany, West
Okay.
Virginia. It's like a very small village outside of the school year. There's only like 200 people there. And at Fitch, it was a little bit of culture shock. At Austintown Fitch, I graduated with over 400 people, and at Bethany, there was less
Mm,
than 500 there when I went. So
wow.
it was a very tiny school. But we played in the pack. So we played schools like Teal, Westminster. At the time, we had a school called Thomas More in Kentucky. They were a really big D3 school that they were phenomenal. So we played teams like that. So it was a good conference.
What made you decide to go to that school?
So a little bit of like a sad story, but also like the school was great. I wasn't the best student in high school, to be honest, and I needed that small like classroom size, more one-on-one. But my mom was also sick at the time, so it was only about an hour and 20 minutes from home. So when she was sick, I was able to come
Oh,
back,
shoot.
go back and forth a lot. So that was something that my college coach, the first one that I had him for my first 2 years. His name was Peter Parakakis. He like made fun of me when I went in a kind-hearted way, but he was like, "I've had you on my board for 9 months trying to recruit you, seeing if you were going to come or not." But he knew the reasoning as to why I was kind of battling of, was I going to go away to school, or was I going to, not play soccer and just go to the, college that was local and just do my studies. So, but that was like kind of the biggest thing. I didn't have a lot of looks in college. There was a couple people I was talking to, but Bethany was the closest.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime there's a family question going on, an issue like that, it's important to be close by. So that's gonna have a big effect on choices made at that time of your life for sure.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So now, before we get into the current conversation of what's going on with soccer, I know that you're a social worker professionally. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
How did you get into that? What was your calling for that? That's awesome.
So honestly, this is the same story I tell everybody, I swear, but I went to Bethany going in as a like gym teacher, like athletics, teaching,
Okay.
that was what I was going to do. And then for some reason, like the first week of classes, I changed to social work, but I don't even know exactly why. Like I knew I liked to help people, but I didn't have a mindset of like what I was going to do with social work. And then
Huh.
back to the sad part of the story, it works out now that I actually work for the first hospice that was ever in our area, Hospice of the Valley. I work for them, and my mom had actually passed with them. So I work closely with like some
Wow.
of the people that took care of my mom. So that's really cool. Like I had no idea that I ever would have worked with like geriatrics, end of life. Most people that go into social work do like mental health, like children services, things like that. So I'm kind of on the other end of social work and kind of help people with that final transition. And I have to thank my job because they work very well with me. We do our schedules ahead of time because it's healthcare. And I'm like,
Right.
listen, I know that the MASL doesn't pay my bills, but I got to be there for soccer. So they really work with me and, let me have the time off that I need to come and play.
Well, you just touched my heart. I mean, that is an incredibly honorable, choice that you've made to take care of people at that point in life. That's just amazing.
Thank you.
Um, so it sort of shot me in the heart there. Um, my mom and dad are both still living, and they're both in their late 80s, and they're both doing quite well.
That's awesome.
And it is awesome. In fact, with the holiday season just passed, we had a chance. My brother came out with his wife and also her mom, who's also in her late 80s, and we had the three generations together. But so far, we haven't had the need for the kind of work that you do. But I got to tell you, I've seen, I'm 65 years old myself. So, I mean, you don't get to be 65 years old without having people pass. And
Absolutely.
it's in your life. I mean, it just doesn't work. So I really do deeply respect that. That's an incredible calling. I really do. I love that.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate it. I wish that we didn't have a need for that service, but unfortunately it's the inevitable. So it's nice to, have people that care and to be able to do it. But that's awesome. Your parents are still living, 3 generations. That's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is great. My son and my nephew are both in their late 20s and early 30s. They don't have any kids, and I really want to just kind of slap them. It's like, what's going on? Come on, come on,
Right.
get with it here. Get with the program, guys. you know, I mean, we should be able to have at the age that your grandparents and your parents are, and you. We should have
Mhm.
4 generations in this party going on, for the holidays. What's up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you married?
No, I am not.
Well, I guess in a sense, I guess I could, because you said you were 28.
Yeah.
That's the age that's my son's age too. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, and maybe you could fill me in, but your generation has decided in a lot of cases to sort of take your time getting things started in families.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I think it's part of just how the world is. Sometimes I think we're afraid to keep moving forward and going to the next part. And I know I hear a lot of people my age saying, "Oh, I don't want to bring a kid into this world." But you know,
Yeah,
my
well,
my family's lucky because they got my brother and he's got two kids, so I'm
there we
like off
go.
the hook, you know.
You are. I was just going to say that. I was going to use that term. I was going to say you're off the hook. Don't
Yeah.
stress it. What's funny though is that same statement. When I was in my early 20s, I had people my generation. They were saying the same thing. I mean, the same exact words. I don't know if I want to bring kids into this world the way the world is. So I mean, that's just. I mean, it's a different world for sure. But that's
Yeah.
not a different. The sentiment is not any different. There's been a lot of that conversation depends on where you go. And I mean, in my case, it was interesting because I definitely wanted. I felt like I needed to be. I was supposed to be a dad.
Yeah.
I just felt like there was a thing for me. I wanted to be a dad, and it's been a great run. So let's talk a little bit about the MASLW. How did you get involved with it? I guess you were playing in the PASL last season before the W started. Is that correct?
Yeah, so sadly, I missed out on an opportunity. Back in 2019 was the first year that the Youngstown Nighthawks added a women's side. And when I was asked to play, I was like, I don't think I'm good enough to play like the semi-professional indoor soccer. So I missed out. COVID year happened. After that, it was hard to get girls back. And then last year was their first year back again. So I decided to play, and I mean, that's how it got started. We were in the PASL last year. You know, they had that merge, and now we're in the MASLW, and I think it brings a lot more light to it, being that there's the MASL was already established. So now
Sure.
adding the women's league, like everybody has been excited, not only women, but a lot of the fans from the
Absolutely.
MASL already are like, wow, okay, we have a women's division now. Anybody, you know, you want to see what you love grow. So I think having it all under one
Yeah.
umbrella is just speeding that process up a little bit. I think it's great growth for the league.
So, I mean, I got to assume that for the vast majority of the ladies that are playing in NASLW, their experience with soccer is on an outdoor field, more than likely. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I would say it's on an outdoor field, or if they've played indoor, they've played rec indoor, which is also completely different. You know,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot more people on the field. The transitioning isn't the same. It's more for fun. So some of these girls, they're like, "Oh, I've played indoor," and then they come to our tryouts and they're like, "Oh, that's not how I play indoor." Like it's very different. There's some strategic things that really go into the game, and you know, can make a difference, like the subbing rules, you know, things like
Right.
that make a difference on, you know, are you going to sub at the right time, or are you going to sub at the bad time and get scored on? Little things
Yep.
add up to, you know, what indoor soccer is actually all about at this level.
Yeah. It's an entirely different game. I mean, the skill set's pretty basically the same, but as far as the game itself is concerned and the way it's played, with the substituting, with the boards, with the size of the field, with the number of players, with the speed of the game itself, there's just so much that needs to get used to for a player that doesn't have that experience. And I mean, how else do you get the experience but to play the game?
Yeah, play the game, come in. You know, I sent a message out to my team this morning about like discipline, just being disciplined and coming in and being ready to, you know, fix all those little things. You know, I know we've talked about like the skill level. The skill level, yeah, you have a lot of people who came from outdoor, but there's the skill level is still there. It's just, can you play
Right.
that, you know, compact game?
Right.
And I think like a lot of the teams, like of course there's going to be people who struggle with it a little bit, but it seems like a lot of the teams are, you know, do it fairly well. I think the biggest struggle is sometimes going from, you know, everybody's facility, and some people have a little bit smaller of a field than we do. You know, like we have a pretty large indoor
Right.
field. When we go over to play Sassafras in Akron, their field is very, very small. So it puts us in a little bit of a panic because we're already used to playing at a fast pace, but now it's double that because the field is almost half our
That's right.
size. So, you know, there's a
Wow.
lot of adapting that has to be done.
Well, yeah, and I mean that same thing exists all the way up to the first division of the MASL. There's a couple of teams that have significantly smaller fields than the rest of the league. And what's interesting, what I've noticed is a lot of teams have a smaller rec center that they can practice in when they're going to prepare for playing those teams. When they're planning, when they're getting ready to go there, they'll relocate their practices from where they normally practice to a facility that has a small field. And I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer if they have access to that kind of a facility. But
Right.
yeah, it's a much different. It makes it a lot different when the field size is noticeably different. I mean, they're not all exactly the same either, but when they're noticeably different. Do you have that opportunity to practice on a smaller place, or is your field also your practice location?
So our field is our practice location. We do have a smaller field that's like in the same facility, that, as long as there's not something going on up there, I'm sure that they would allow us to, use that one instead. But, it's like full swing for the community kids, the local high school teams, that they're all playing in like their indoor rec leagues right now. So where we play, it's
Right.
usually like pretty packed from the time that they open till the time that they close. Both fields are being used, but definitely something that, we can look into. The only difference is too, is that field that we have that's like smaller is also way smaller than Sassafras is. So it's like now we're like really
Oh,
getting
gotcha.
compact. So like it would help.
Oh,
It would be
gotcha.
beneficial, but yeah, the field sizes are tough, but that's just part of, playing in a professional league, is just being adaptable.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to carry from, place to place that we go. Turf is different, lines are different.
Right.
That just happens as long as it meets the criteria of the MASL, you can play
Right.
on it. So
now you've mentioned Sassafras a couple of times, mentioning them as for the size of their field, but interestingly, you've played 2 games so far in league play, in regular season play, and both of them have been against that side. Talk a little bit about that relationship that you have going on with, because you're also going to play them next weekend or something too.
yeah, we have them 4 times this season, so definitely nice for our travel. Honestly, they're a great team. They're organized. They have a lot of good girls. Going back to talking about the area, their location, it is what it is. It's a little bit better of a location. The girls that we've tried to pull previously from like Cleveland, Canton, it's a lot easier of a drive, for them. They have a lot of big schools around there, so it seems like they have a lot of college players and whatnot. So they're a good team. They, we've had a rough go against them. The first game was, culture shock for a lot of our girls. We were kind of explaining what it was going to be like going in, and then they were like, "Oh, it's like that." Like they were like, "This is very physical, more physical than I thought." So, and some of the rules are a little bit different. We have that keeper's hot. You can't pass back to the keeper twice in one possession. So trying to accommodate to that was tough. We have a lot of girls who have never played the indoor game. So, I would say that like we have a young team of people who are really trying to get the gist of, some of us, I guess what you would call veterans who have played before. But I mean, Sassafras, they play very organized. So it's always a learning experience going and playing against them. You play hard on the field, but there's no hard feelings off the field. You're just like, okay, like they're a good team. Second time we played them, we scored first. We were doing a little bit better, but both times our goalie got hurt. So our goalie is Annabelle Hegeman. She recently traveled to Croatia with the mini world football team. And the first game, she had a collision. What's that? Oh, sorry, I
I
thought you
said,
said
"Oh,
something.
wow."
Yeah. Um, so first game she had a collision, she hurt her ankle, and then the second game she didn't even make it to halftime. She took a rough dive, amazing save, but she hit her head off the corner of the wall and ended up with 5 staples. Our backup goalie went in and she took a dive and hyperextended her elbow, so she's bruised from her wrist to the top of her bicep right now. So the last 2 minutes I ended up in goal. So we've had a
Oh my
rough go.
goodness.
But
Oh my
if anything, it's
goodness.
like, Yeah. But if anything, it's a learning experience. Like our girls, like they, the score does not depict the type of team that we are. The score just depicts how young we are and and some of the experience that we have. So, our girls, every practice though, they're coming, they're eager to learn. They're like sponges. Like they're listening to what our coach says and they're fixing those mistakes. So, but yeah, so that's for us. I mean, they're a good team. It's awesome to have them in the league and, expand Ohio a little bit. We have a lot
Right.
of teams in Ohio now, so we could almost. I mean, we had another one, maybe add a team in Toledo, and we could have a whole division just in Ohio.
So I live in Southern California, and one of the things that this is kind of a rabbit trail. One of the things that I worked in the travel industry and the airline industry for a number of years when I was much younger, and traveled all over the country. And one of the things that just absolutely took me by surprise was that Toledo and Cleveland are coastal cities. I don't care what anybody says; those are coastal cities.
Yeah,
that that lake is an ocean. I mean, you've got a
yeah.
beach, you've got waves, you've got people sunning themselves with umbrellas. I'm telling you, that's a coast. It took me by shock. I did not expect to see that or experience that, and that's a neat culture. There's a really really cool culture that goes on there. I spent a lot of time up in that area. One of the things that I've experienced, I used to do PA announcement for an outdoor women's team,
Oh,
and one
cool.
of the things, yeah, and one of the things that I noticed was that women don't dive like men do to draw that penalty. They don't. Women take that hit and keep on playing the ball and run on. And I mean, sometimes the referee actually has to stop play because the play's still going even after some obvious foul. you know, I really appreciate that. Because that's one of the most frustrating things I think for people, especially fans that don't necessarily know soccer. I think they get really frustrated with the frequency that a player will take what looks like an insignificant hit, through the course of play, and then just drop to the ground and roll, 15 yards, faking, trying to draw that penalty. And I really
Hmm.
find that doesn't happen so much with the women. Do you have a similar observation?
Yeah, I do. And like honestly, I'm the kind of person like, do I watch women's sports because I'm a woman? Yeah, of course. But like if you had to ask me like who I wanted to watch basketball wise, unless it's Caitlin Clark, like I'm gonna watch the NBA. Like it's a faster pace, it's good. But when it comes to soccer, like I would rather watch women's soccer all day long. Like I'm not saying anything bad. There's a lot of phenomenal men's soccer players, but for some reason, I don't even know when that culture started. But the culture of getting clipped and just rolling and rolling and rolling and trying to pull that foul is, I don't know where that started. And you do see it a lot more in guy sports, like especially when I was at nationals last year for the PASL. Like if a woman was getting
Right.
a foul, it was because they got fouled. Like there was no rolling, there was no embellishing. Like it was a hard hit, they got fouled, and they called that foul. So yeah, I don't know where that started or why it continues,
Right.
but that's the culture, I guess. I don't know.
So, so another thing that I wanted to ask you was there's 22 teams in the MASLW, and I think by looking at the standings, I think the far west is pretty much the only location, maybe the deep south as well, that don't have any representation, or at least not very much. But with that many different players that are out there, what do you see as far as the parity of the league is concerned? I mean, I know that you probably are only seeing the teams that are in your division, but what's your take on the parity throughout the league?
So I had a pretty cool experience. I was talking about Annabelle with, our goalie that got to go to Croatia for the Mini World Cup. So I actually got to travel and help out with the social media for that. So I got to meet quite a few people. Our division, we have a lot of the girls on the team that play in our division. So there's four on the Cincinnati Sirens, three on Columbus Eagles, two in Louisville, and then we have Annabelle, or two, no, three in Louisville. But then, I got to meet some other people too, like Kenny Kessler. She's a big name. She plays out of Texas. She's a phenomenal soccer player. Kelsey Keown, she played for Memphis Mayhem last year. They're not in the league, but she plays on another team, so she's still involved. So being able to see like everybody, not just like outside of our region, I would say that, the skill level is definitely there. I think every team struggles a little bit when they're trying to build a team. There's some people that come and they're like, okay, I could probably play this level, and then, maybe find out that it's a little bit higher than what they were expecting. So I think all of the teams are really trying to just create that atmosphere of like, this isn't just like professional soccer quotes. Like, we are trying to actually build professional teams. And honestly, I help out with the MASL social media, so I get to see a lot of it too. And it seems like a lot of these teams really are organized. Wichita is one that always interests me because they have 3 teams in Wichita. The Lady Luck are
Right.
coming in, and they're 3-0. So
Right.
I mean, I think the skill level is definitely there because I help out with the social media. I get a lot of posts sent to me, and I'm watching a lot of the games, and I mean, there's some phenomenal players in this league, absolutely. Um, so I think there's always there's going to be room to build and grow, and I think that this can really turn into something neat. It can be a great opportunities for women to get to take it to that next level. And I mean, expanding too. Like, we have areas that there aren't any teams. Like, if there's an area where people are like, wow, I have a lot of friends that, like, we all come back from college, and we're good players and we have a good soccer community. My biggest thing would
Right.
be fill out the expansion paperwork. Talk to the MASL. If you have what it takes to be able to provide that atmosphere in your area, a place to play. The funding, because right now, teams don't really have investors. I mean, if you're not fundraising and whatnot, then it's kind of difficult to play and have a team. But if you have the area that you think you can host one, I think absolutely do it. I think that we should grow this across the United States, no doubt. And I think it's doable. Especially California. California's so big, you could have a couple different teams there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I mean, from the standpoint of the MASL soccer fan that's been following indoor soccer on whether MASL like it is as it is today, or in my past history with all the other leagues that have existed and followed the sport, fallen in love with the sport, I know that a lot of us are really excited to have the ladies league happening, the women's league happening. I mean, it's really exciting to see that and follow that and get a feel for what's going on. It's not really a brand new idea, but it is a growing idea for sure. And I was gonna ask you, from what is the typical pool of where the talent is drawn from? Are these girls that have been playing minor league outdoor, or college outdoor, or maybe even just coming out of high school? I mean, where's the talent pool pretty much coming from?
I would say a lot of people who are either in college or coming home from college are the ones that are, playing. A lot of times if you're in college, and especially if you're playing like D1, your coaches aren't usually allowing you to play for any other leagues outside of, just where you're at, because they don't want you to get hurt. That's your scholarship, things like that. But speaking for us, I know that we have some girls that are, fresh out of high school that are wanting to play. Um, just kind of take it
Mm-hmm.
to that next level. A lot of our girls have come back from college or have been previous college players, and, just wanting to stay into the competitiveness of it. So, I would say that for us, it's hard for me to say that like for every team, but it does seem like a lot of the girls that I've met, they have a past history of like that higher level of soccer and want to continue.
So yeah, so from a coaching standpoint, that's kind of interesting because if you've got team players on the team that have experience, if you've got players on the team that can adapt to the indoor game quickly, if you have, and then at the same time, I mean, then you coach it. You kind of tend to coach it at one level. If you have
Mhm.
to actually bring the kid up, if this is a young person directly out of high school that has limited skills but a lot of fire, a lot of passion, wants to play, and can be coached, then you need to have that coach play it a completely different way across the board. I mean, it's not like it's not like in typical, say, college sports. I mean, all of, like, for instance, if it's a college team, there's a attrition every 4 years. I mean, every year you lose players because you can't hold on to them because they're going out, they're coming in from or going out of college. In the pros, you got a bunch of people that typically are all, they've got the basics down. They know what's going on. They know how to play. They just need to get the chemistry within the team players. So that team chemistry would be a real exercise in coaching, it would seem, from what you're explaining is going on in the MASLW.
Yeah, and I think chemistry can be a big thing. Learning how to play with people that you've never played with. A lot of the girls that we had for our first game, they had about 3 practices under their belt with each other before they had to go on a field and try to make some chemistry. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a big thing. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but a couple stories here. World Cup dad that went to the combine this year, just started playing soccer 18 months ago or something like that, and was like, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. And he has progressed phenomenally. We have a girl on our team, 38 years old. She started playing soccer a year and a half ago. She's made one of our rosters already. She's, very transparent with herself and knows what she needs to work on. And she's never, her feelings are not hurt when she doesn't make a roster, but she works very hard to make those rosters. I think if you're determined enough and you have the will to learn and come in and work hard every day and not settle for mediocre, I think anybody can play. But I'm also just really optimistic. So I think there's definitely some things that you need to be a soccer player. The IQ helps, the experience helps. But I mean, you'd be surprised at some of the stories. If you haven't seen the World Cup dad, you could type that into Instagram and go watch his videos on his page, and his story is just awesome. So, and he was drafted. He got drafted
cool.
by, I believe, the Strikers.
Yeah, that's wow. Okay, that's very cool. I guess that story slipped past me. I didn't. And he was at the. Are you saying he was at the MASL Combine in San Diego?
Yeah. Yep.
Huh. Wow, that story slipped past me. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that that people are picking up the sport at later in life than you would expect. When I was younger, my athletics was American football and track and field, and I didn't fall in love with soccer until I was 19 years old. And I felt at the time, and I was about the same age as some of the younger players on the field at the time that were just doing these incredible, skills and just blasting it all over the place and really impressing me with their skill set. And I just sort of at the time just assumed, I mean, I went out and I played a little bit, pickup games and stuff like that. But I just naturally assumed that I was getting into the game too late to actually really make it anything for a lifestyle or a game to play professionally, because I was so old. I was too old to get started. Most of the people that play professional soccer, men anyway, they start at 6 and 7 years old. And especially back then, the majority of the players that I was watching were international players. So it was, even in the United States, and so many of them were international players. And I mean, those guys grew up in a soccer culture, from the very beginning. I mean, they were kicking a ball around instead of playing with Barbies, for crying out loud,
Yeah.
the ladies. So I mean, it's, so I mean, it's an interesting take on how that materializes. And it's like we were talking about earlier, here in the United States, there's so many choices as an athlete, and how the love of a particular sport draws you into, because as you said earlier, it gets to a point where if you're going to continue being an athlete, you have to focus on one thing. You can't too much. I mean, unless you're Deion Sanders, you can't really do 2 different sports at a top level. And there's only one Deion Sanders. Well, I mean, I guess Bo Jackson was that as well, but you just don't see those kind of players too often, those kind of athletes.
Right.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you keep within your division for the entire regular season. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how many games are you playing?
We're playing
Total.
a 10-game season this year. And then, so our division is, we're in Youngstown. We have Sassafras in Akron, Columbus Eagles in Columbus, Cincinnati Sirens, and then our long one is Louisville Triumph in Kentucky.
And you're trying, and when any of your away dates, you're take all of that's on the road, correct? I mean, you're not flying anywhere, are you?
No, yeah, we'll drive. So, honestly, last year when we went to Cincinnati, the one game we had, we drove there, played, and we drove home. You know, talking about women's sports, we have some moms on the team that are fantastic, and they got to get home to their babies. So the only game that we'll probably stay overnight for is Louisville, Kentucky, because that one's 6 hours. That one's tough to turn around and drive home after. So,
No,
but yeah,
that would be brutal.
everything's on the road.
In fact, I mean, if you travel 6 hours and then play that same day, um, I mean, it would be hard. I mean, I would want to, if I was trying to organize the trip, I would try to get the people in, the team in the night before, but then you're probably stuck staying 2 nights, and you probably don't want to do that either. I don't know. That's the logistics get kind of tough.
Yeah, the only good part about the Louisville game is it's scheduled for 8:45 at night, so we could leave at 9 in the morning and get to the hotel and have some time to like really relax before we have to play. Now, if it was a 4 o'clock game or something like that, probably be a little bit of a different story. Probably want to
Right.
drive down the night before, so we're not just hopping out of the car and playing because that gets tough. So.
Yeah. Do you feel? I mean, travel in sports is. I mean, the home field advantage is a real thing. In most cases, you got the home team. Wakes up in their own house. They don't have to wake up in a hotel. Do you guys? Are you feeling that same kind of a thing when you guys travel to your road games?
Yeah, a little bit. I think people are just more comfortable in their area. I think some teams are definitely going to be surprised when they come to us, based on our field size and whatnot, and our fan base and kind of what we have going on the day of the game. I've been to some settings that are, really, really hype and professional, and they've got these great announcers, and then we've gone to some games that are a little bit more low key, and like you just kind of go and play and
Right.
it's done. But I think, I mean, traveling anywhere, not being where you're comfortable, adds a little bit of that like anxiety, nervousness, how am I going to adapt? Then once you get in the game, it's usually like smooth sailing from there. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. You go into these places and,
Right.
teams just look confident. So.
Uh, but the other teams that besides Louisville, I mean, the other ones are relatively close. At least some of them are relatively close to you, aren't they?
Yeah, so Sassafras is about an hour from us, like less than an hour, and then Columbus is 2.5.
Well, that's not that bad.
Yeah,
That's not that bad.
yeah.
I mean, that's a trip back and forth. Guessing the other divisions, I'm guessing, are somewhat similar in distance and travel times. I'm sort of hesitating here because I want to ask you about the playoff structure, but I'm going to guess that because I was talking with Josh Oden a couple of weeks ago, and he made the comment about the M3 that the playoff structure hadn't actually been formally decided on yet. Is that true also with MW?
Yeah, for the most part, they're throwing around some ideas, but they haven't really released anything yet. So.
So with 10 games for the season, they're equally broken up between 5 at home and 5 on the road.
Yeah, I believe so. I know it's like that for us, so I think it just depends on availability for everybody else's, but I want to say that I think everybody got 5 home and 5 away.
How far apart I mean, how long is the season? You guys have already played 2 games. As you mentioned, the Wichita Luck have played 3.
Mhm.
I noticed when I was looking at the ladder, there are some teams that haven't played yet during the season. How long is the season? What month and date and area does it end?
So something pretty nice that the MASL did this year is they definitely got things out quicker, um, which also took us by shock because we did not have as much time to practice with our girls as we normally do. So last year our season didn't start until after the new year. This year we got the schedule and we were like, oh, like, well, now we need to go talk to the facility and start practicing earlier. And still, with when we had tryouts, we still only got 3 practices under our belt before our first game. But so some people's seasons they started, oh gosh, we played December 7th was our first game, and we had tryouts November 16th. So quick turnaround time.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And then but yeah, so it goes from December until March, and then I don't know the exact dates for the
Right.
national tournament yet, if it's going to be the end of March, beginning of April. But that's the time frame of the season. So some people they got a little bit I don't know if you want to call it a better situation, but some of them aren't starting until excuse me after the new year. So they've had a lot of time to
Yeah.
really mesh their team together, play, figure some things out, get some scrimmages, which are nice too, get a couple friendlies in. Yeah. So about 4 or 5 months is
So
about how long our
so
season
there's
goes.
so there's going to be a number of teams that are going to have a front-loaded schedule, and a number of teams are going to have a back-loaded schedule, and there's going to be another number of teams where the schedule is spread out over that whole period of time. I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like I don't know if they did it like the travel this way purposely, but I know for us, like we're playing Sassafras three times in a row. So I don't know if they did that just to
Right.
like ease in and like okay, play each other and then we'll kind of spread you out. But playing the same team back to back 3 times is you learn them, that's for sure.
You
So
get to know your opponent for sure. I
yeah.
mean, that's almost like a series. If you're playing one team, and I think you mentioned earlier that you faced that team 4 times.
Yeah, yep, 4 of our and then every the other 3 teams that we'll play, we've just played them twice.
Okay.
So
All
it
right.
seems
Well,
like, they have a rivalry down south. Columbus Eagles and the Sirens, they always put on a fantastic performance. And I think that's what is going to end up happening with us and Sassafras. They're so close. I think it's going to be like our inner Ohio rivalry. You'll have the rival of the North
cool.
and the South, and that'll create a nice thing for the fans. So.
Are there any players in the league that you've played with outside of this league? Like, have you run across any of these players in other competitions throughout your coming up in the soccer world?
A little bit. So in Akron, they have an all women's league. So I've played a lot of the girls on Sassafras. I've played against them on Wednesday nights at Akron Indoor or Saturdays, in the summer they had a league. So I've played against quite a few of them. Outside of that, I have a couple girls on my team that I had either coached previously or one of them I played in college with.
Oh, cool.
But as far as everybody
Oh,
else,
cool.
from, Columbus area, Cincinnati area, if I did play against them when we were younger in tournaments, I don't remember. So
That's absolutely. I mean, this is, as big a game as soccer is, it's really interesting to me how small the community tends to be, and how frequently people cross paths in their professional career, whether it's broadcasting or playing or coaching. It's a pretty small community.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you start to get to those higher levels, everybody kind of
Right.
starts playing each other. So, but I mean, it makes for good competition. It's nice when people come back to Ohio. Like, if any of these girls, if I ever did play with them previously, and like I said, I'm not sure. It's nice that when they come back to their hometowns, they have somewhere that they can go play.
That's right. That's right. So you were mentioning that in the location, in the facility that your field is at, where you play, that there's a lot of youth activity going on. Does do the Youngstown Nighthawks have any interaction with any of these youth organizations? I mean, are some of you guys coaching some of the kids?
Yeah, and our men's side, they've been around for about 11 years now. This is their 11th season. I think the COVID year they didn't play, so like their 10th season playing, but 11th year around. They have some involvement in the
Right.
community. We will do some kids camps. Our goal is to create kind of like an academy team or a travel team that our players will coach, and then it kind of gives them the inspiration that when they're older, they're going to want to play for the Youngstown Nighthawks. So after they go and they do their thing, whether it's college or travel and whatnot, that when they come back home, there's going to be there they can be known as, oh, they played on the academy, and it kind of funneled them into the atmosphere that we're trying to create here for professional teams. So that's the goal. But
Andrea,
right
I
now,
really do
kids
appreciate
camps.
you joining me. Yeah. Andrea, I really do appreciate you joining me today. It was interesting because I don't have a time limit on my conversations when I do this. And I was looking at the material and what we were going to talk about, and I was thinking, this might maybe only 20 or 30 minutes, whatever. But no, we pushed this up to a 46-minute conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you really for joining me, because I think it's important that the people out there that are watching and that will watch get to know more about what's going on with the MASLW, and you've really painted a good picture of what the story is and how things are going.
Yeah, good. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me, give my 2 cents on it, in my opinion. So no, I think I can speak for every team though, that we really appreciate, the league for
Yeah,
giving
no,
us this
absolutely.
opportunity. I think that, the girls are from every team are very excited to see how interactive people have been with us and how interested they are in the MASLW. So I
Yeah.
think I want to thank everybody for that and giving us the opportunity to be able to do this.
Well, like I said earlier, there's a buzz. I mean, I know I hear it from all of the people I talk to. There's a buzz. Women, get some of the women on the study on soccer, so we can get to know them from a more personal level, professional level, and going forward with what the MASLW is doing. Once again, Andrea, thank you so much for joining me. Have yourself a happy new year. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right.